Hello, hello. Welcome to Creep on June 24. Can you believe, after all the anticipation, we are finally here? I'm so excited, and I'm also really nervous because you never know how things are going to go. I filmed a whole video yesterday. It was terrible. So I'm doing it again today, and fingers crossed it's going to work. So, as you know, the Creep On calendar is on our website. The link will be in the description box. Everybody taking part in the collaboration is linked. Their channel or Instagram is already linked. As the videos go live each day, the links will become the video link. So just check on the links now. Subscribe to the channels in advance. We would really appreciate that. I have kind of 3 things to do today. So I want to say a massive thank you to my good friend Liz for giving me some fabulous creepy nails for today. And I'm going to be using what you see here. This one I may or may not use. I've also got a couple of other bits because I'm going to be doing an additional project. So keep watching for that. I seem to have 2. Oh, it's because I printed 2. Yeah, that's because I printed 2. Now, to explain, I printed this and then I reversed the page and I printed it again because I wanted a back and a front for my little handy hand here. And I'll show you why later. Obviously the key comes in 2, and I'm not going to lie, I did cut that out with my Cricut. There is an easier key to cut out, which I'll show you. This key is much more straightforward. This one I did cut out by hand. So you can always cut that one out instead of this if you don't have a Cricut or a scan and cut. I'm going to ink my pieces because you really don't want to watch me ink everything. Right, now everything is inked. I've actually glued these back to back. It's easier to ink those when they're glued together. I've inked that and that. I have not yet inked these pieces. We'll come back to those. I just want to talk a little bit about my 2 tags. Now, I've printed them twice. On one, I've left it blank. On the other, I have backed. You can back it with any paper you have. I've used page 1 of the back end paper, but I did lighten it in the printer software. This one is going to be on the back and this one is going to be on the front. So I want to work on this here, and I'm going to add my house. I don't think I'm going to do anything to it other than I'm going to just stress this a little bit. I know I've already inked it and I'm going to kind of need to ink it again. I'm not worried about this area here. So I'm just going to distress a couple of the other areas. And I've used scorched timber. I've used a very dark ink on here. So I'm just going to ink these little areas that I've kind of ripped into a little bit. I think I'm going to add a clip to mine. You don't have to, but I'm going to go for my Tim Holtz index clips. So these are index clips from Tim Holtz. They are coming in stock every now and then. You do have to keep an eye out for them. I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add a little bit of sewing, but not everywhere. I'm going to open this up. So I'm working on this left-hand side. I'm going to glue this into place. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of sewing. I'll be back. So I've got a little bit of sewing here and a little bit of sewing here. Fold that for a minute. I want these threads. I love the threads. And I've got one of these camera apertures. And I want my house to be like that. But this is kind of what I want. This is just a little bit wide for the tag. So I'm just going to put that down, lay my tag over the top evenly. So I've got about the same amount of white either side. Line it up best I can. I'm just going to take my pencil and draw a little line because I just want to trim off those tiny little bits either side. And that now should be the right width for my tag, which it is. Brilliant. Okay, I'm just going to grab my split pins. Okay, it took me a while, but I've found 2 of my little screw head ones from Tim Holtz. You don't have to use these. Obviously you can use plain ones, and I'm just going to put one at the top and one at the bottom corner. I think I'm going to put one here. Put that in there. And I'm going to put one down the bottom here. So I have that, and that's going to go over my house, but there's still something I want to do before that. I'm going to be using some mica, but you don't have to use mica. You can use the faux mica that I've been making. You could use transparency, you can use packaging, you can use acetate, anything that you can see through would be fine. But I'm going to use some of this. I actually want to leave this fairly thick. You can cut this with scissors. So I'm going to just line this up with my aperture and cut. Now, I'm just guesstimating. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be gluing this into place and then taping it. Okay, so I've just roughly cut that to size. I don't want to put my glue too close to the edge of my hole because the glue will seep over this. So I'm going to glue around the hole, maybe 4 or 5 millimeters away, like that. And then add my mica. I'm going to turn that over to push it down from this side because we've got those split pins. So I've got some washi tape here. It doesn't matter what you use as long as it's not too wide, because we want to make sure these edges are nicely covered. So what I'm going to do is run some glue along here. I want a nice neat edge, so I'm going to cut my washi with scissors, just get the rough length I need and put that over. Just put that over the edge of that mica and just make sure that's nicely glued down. So I'm going to do all 4 edges. So that's nice and neat on the edges. So I'm quite happy with that. And this is going to go here over the house. You can see actually how creepy that now looks, having that. The mica is quite dark. If you were using a transparency, you might want to use a little bit of alcohol ink maybe to grunge it up a little bit. I'm going to glue this into place, but I'm not going to glue it down in the way you might think, because I want my hand to be able to come into this aperture. So what I'm going to do is just see how far that comes up there. So something like that. I'm going to glue this edge and the top, and I'm going to come down about halfway on the right hand side. So this edge along the top and then maybe halfway. And I want to make sure I can see a good amount of the house. Right, so I'm going to burnish this down. And for now, I'm just going to put that aside. I want that glue nice and dry. And I'm going to come on to this piece here. So this is the title deed for Craftly Hall. And of course, I do want to ink this. So I'm going to, again, I'm using my scorched timber. So this is nice and dark. I'm going to fold this in half along that line. I'm just going to ink the inside actually as well. So let's give this a good burnish down. So we have that. Right, now I know this says title deed here, but what I want to do is add the little part of the story that relates to day one. If you're not following the story, of course, you don't have to do any of this. Glue this into place. And I'm going to put that at a little jaunty angle there. I think I'm going to add one of the little wax seals. Like that. So we have a little journaling card there. Now my photo is also backed. So this one is the one that is backed. I want to tear this piece here. So I'm going to open it up and I want to tear roughly halfway down, right down the middle. So let's do that. Okay, so I've got my tear. It's not perfect, but it shouldn't be. It's a tear. So now we have this little half pocket, and inside there we'll tuck our little deed and the image of our new homeowners, like that. So now what we need to do is attach it to this part of the tag. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to line this up. I have some white cotton. Just cut that roughly to the right length, and obviously this is way too wide, so I'm going to trim this to about half the width, and I think I'll add this half. Just take those out of there for a moment. What I need to do is I need to ink this piece of white cotton that's going to show, and it takes ink really well, this white cotton. It's just an old, I think it was an old tablecloth actually. I don't think it was a sheet. I think it was a tablecloth. So that looks nice and dirty. We love a bit of dirty cotton, don't we? Along that edge. And line this up. That. Don't worry about that, that will not be seen. You'll only see that little bit there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a stitch all the way around this, so it will secure this into place. But what I do want to do first is just cut here and that edge. So we have that. I'll trim the bottom as well. And I'm just going to sew this. Okay, so now we have our little hinge and our little pocket. And now what we want to do is we want to glue this tag very close to that tag, but we just need a tiny gap so we've got enough room to hinge. And I'm just going to glue along here this little edge for now. So I'm going to line it up. Lay that down. Turn it over. Just make sure that's nice and dry. And now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this side of my tag before I close it. Fold that over. Push that down. And obviously when you haven't made an exact prototype, you really kind of hold your breath when you put this together. So, moment of truth, we have our tag. Loving the front. So we've got the inside. I've got a little piece of dyed seam binding here. We have the day's story, and we have our new homeowners. So I'm going to pop that into the pocket, pop the deed into the pocket, and then I'm going to pop the key just inside that piece of trim. So we have the deeds inside our little booklet tag. It's a little bit, I can't put this in with the closure, so I'm going to put that in without the closure, and I'm going to tuck my little key in there like so, and that will now close. And then we have our creepy hand, which hopefully will slide in front of our camera lens like so. I do love it. I really do love it. I am actually going to show you what I made yesterday. Yesterday's was very, very similar. However, I tried to do something a little bit more elaborate by making this flap, which is great, but it's a little bit more tricky to get my hand in. I didn't do it as a double tag. I did it as a single tag, and we had a little frame on the back with the deed, which this time is actually glued closed, but I did put the part of the story on. So that's just a little idea of how you can change it up if you don't like exactly what I have done here today. Okay, so we are so grateful for so many of you taking part in this project this year. I know you've done lots of printing, and I know you've done lots of cutting, and I'm sure some of you will just scream at me, but I have actually done you a freebie. So this is the freebie, and I know we're only day one, and I'm saying here's a freebie, go and print it out again, you know, print something else. So I do apologise, but I thought this was a really cool idea. So I've designed this deed for Craftly Hall and background page. So I've backed it, and then I've done the back again, and I've backed it twice, so it's going to be a double page. So the first thing I am going to do is cut these out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do quickly like this. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with my crinkly scissors. You could rip it, you don't have to do what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to, in some areas, just come in with my wrinkly scissors to just make that look a little bit more rough. So as well as cut them out, I have inked them, so that's going to save us a minute. Now what I want to do is I want to make this look even more authentic. So under here I have a red pen. Any red pen would do this, but you often find red lines around a lot of these deeds. I didn't want to just go ahead and add it to the digital because not everybody will want the red. Maybe you don't. I just thought it would be fun to actually draw them in, and I'm going to do it as if I can with a little bit of a staggery line, and I'm doing a double line, and in some places I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put some little gaps in so it looks like the ink may have worn away. So I'm going to do another 2 lines down the bottom. Okay, so already that looks much more realistic. So now I'm going to take the pen again, and I'm going to underline some of the words that I have in bold. I do kind of love that. I think I'm just going to do a single line here. Oh, I was very worried I was going to mess that up. Now, what I'm going to do is staple my top left-hand corner. What wax seals do we have? But I'm going to add my wax seal. I have been a bit happy using my wax seals because I do rather love them. So now what I'm going to do is fold it over, and I am going to roughly fold this in 3. I'm going to use my bone folder and really burnish these creases in so they look like they've been here for years and years. And this one, fold that up and burnish that down. And now I'm going to take my ink and I'm actually going to ink these outside creases. Okay, so when we open it up, we have our vintage page. Now I'm going to do, just going to ink this inside one too. And then I'm going to ink my map. Now I've printed this onto my heavyweight matte photo paper. I should have probably have printed this on to the thinner paper, but I'm going to glue this onto my second page. So this is a little map of Craftley Hall Estate. So we're going to add that to our deeds. And then I'm just going to crease along that line again. Burnish that down really, really well. And again, I'm just going to ink. Okay, so we have our vintage deed and the inside with lots of journaling room. If this is going to be something you want to use for journaling, then we now have lots of journaling room. So fold back and then I've got another piece of my seam binding, and this has just been dyed with walnut stain. And we're going to tie this closed like so. And then also I have 2 very old keys, and again I know there are keys in the kit, but I thought it would be fun to have a couple of really old vintage keys. So I got these in a box of keys I picked up from eBay. There wasn't very many old rusty keys, most of them were fairly new keys, but just going to tie those together. So we've got our deeds and our keys to Craftley Hall. So I have one more project to show you, but before I do, I'm just going to explain how I'm presenting Craftley Hall. In my head, a new young couple today is moving into Craftley Hall. They have no idea of the background, but when they move in, they explore the house and the loft, and they find a box. This box. Now, this box doesn't look old enough yet. This was a box that I picked up from The Works, if anyone's in the UK. I've painted it brown. I've added some transparent texture paste and painted it. It looks still a little bit new. I have actually waxed it with a furniture wax to protect it, but I do need to bash it up a little bit more, I think. I think it needs a little bit of work. But this is the box that's been found in the loft by our new young couple. And inside, they find the Craftley Hall report. So they learn from this everything they need to know about the property they've just bought. But in this box, for day 1, we're going to have our deeds to the property, the old deeds, and our key. And we're going to have our day 1 tag that we created. And that's going to go underneath the deeds. And basically, what I'm going to be doing is I am just going to be adding everything into my box, and it's going to be kind of a bit scruffy, a bit willy-nilly, you know, just a box full of stuff relating to Craftly Haul. So that is my plan for presenting this. It's not going to be all neat and tidy. It's not a journal. It's just a box of Craftly Haul relics and bits and pieces. That brings me to the next thing. The last project I'm going to share, I did film it, but not from the beginning because I hadn't planned on filming it. This is a little Pandora jewellery box, but you could use any box with one of the camera apertures. And we've got changeable pictures inside. I did want it to be like a camera where you could slide your plates in and out, but it didn't quite work out. So you can see along here the word Pandora. That's why I added some texture paste just to cover those words up. This is a very quick element, so I'm just going to show you how I made it here. It is to music, there's no talking. So I added Ranger translucent texture paste to cover up that Pandora, cut the hole in my box using one of the apertures as a guide, and then I painted with Arteza Fancy Black because I couldn't find my black acrylic. That's just showing you how I cut that hole out. So I completely covered the outside with paint, and then I covered the inside with paint. Once that was all painted, I used the inside of the box to make a little template, cut some paper to sides so it would fit inside the box. So I had my 4 pieces. I just wanted to make sure I could add an image and you could see it through that hole. So now I just lined up my little camera and added that to the front of the box. I just used art glitter glue, glued around the hole to make sure it was going to fit nice and snugly. You could see a little bit on the inside, but not really too much to worry about. Then I wanted to cover up the inside, so I drew around the lid and the little aperture, and then I just cut just inside those lines so it would slot inside the lid, which it did after a little bit of trimming. So I just poke a hole in the middle of the aperture and just cut to the corners, cut a little bit off the inside, and then to give it a nice neat edge I just fold it back rather than cut it, and I just check that's going to fit, glue that down, and then just give it a little burnish just to make sure that's nice and flat. So it fits nicely into the inside of my box, and I glue the whole inside of the box, but I had already cut a little piece of mica to go over that hole, as you can see there. You could use anything, transparency, packaging. Added the insert back just to neaten that up, and I'm just going to use the lid again just to make sure the images will fit nicely into the box using those pieces of card that I cut. I'm going to ink this particular image. Obviously these were the original owners of Craftly Haul. Ink that up, glue it and put it into place, and you can see that's going to fit nicely in there. I decided it would be quite nice to do the day part of the story, so I do the same again, just mark it with a pencil so I know I'm gluing it into the right place. Put that down, put the lid over, and I can see that's going to be seen through the aperture quite nicely. So just check that it's going to fit. Just glue the bottom of the box and glue that insert back into place. It's what originally came out of the box, and then just check that everything fits, and I can see it's a little bit tough to get out, but what I do is just cut the bottom corner off those squares. So I've still got 2 spares. I do keep 1 spare in the back of the box, but I decided to use the spider. I'd made rather a bad job of cutting that out, but I thought behind the mica it would look okay. I'm really happy with it. I actually love the spider. I think that's my favourite. So I hope you enjoyed day 1. So many of you have been looking forward to it. I really hope I didn't disappoint you with my make today. I'm really happy with it, so I hope you are too. And I do hope you like the freebie, and I do apologise, it's more printing. This is obviously an extra. It wasn't something that was supposed to be part of the project, but I did want to include it just in case you wanted to see. So I'm going to chuck my relics back in my box. Might add that as well. Close that up. And I will see you for day 30 again. I probably will pop on with other makes. Once again, thank you all for taking part this year. I know the makers are going to be absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to see what everyone else is doing. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.